I've always wanted to be a writer. For as long as I can remember, I remember being like 7 years old and writing mystery stories and illustrating them because I wanted to write. But, you know, things took a different turn. I went into law. So I completed my law studies and practiced. But the desire to be a writer never went away. And so after about 10 years of practicing law, I just reached a point where it was impossible to ignore this calling. I just felt so frustrated and empty, and like if I was not doing the thing that I should be doing. So Celeste decided to just take a break from law and figure out what is the thing I should be doing. And somehow I ended up, writing another book, this time not a mystery, a romance book. And in the course of writing it, I kind of discovered, you know what, I feel like this is hard, but it's hard, probably as hard or harder than it is to practice law, but I'm enjoying it. So I took the jump and applied to do an MFA program in creative writing in Boston. Was very surprised to be accepted. And I went and I started in 2013. And of course that meant I could not go back to practicing law. So I started in 2013, completed the first semester. And then in the second semester, I realized that I was pregnant, that I was going to have a baby, and it was like, no. So I took some time off, had my daughter, and then having her kind of made me even more committed to finishing the program, because I felt, you know how it is when you feel like you have someone watching you. I felt like I had something to prove to her, that I didn't want her to at any point feel like her mother was a quitter. Of course, this is me putting all of this drama on a little newborn baby, right? But I went back and I finished the program. And in order to finish the program, of course, you have to produce a thesis. And the book, the earliest iteration of the book is actually my thesis. My thesis, it was 6 stories at that time. And I mean, I just handed it in. Okay, fine, I'm finished. Here's my thesis, thank God. But then the external examiner who read my thesis, she said to me, this is not bad. This could be a book if you keep working on it. And so I kept working on it from 2016 when I graduated. I kept working on these stories one by one, sending them out. And there was a lot of rejection, because what I'm writing is not something you see a lot of in the US and in US journals and publications. But I had some good people around me encouraging me, and I just kept sending out. And every time I would feel really down and depressed and about it, I would take some time off from writing, and then I would write a new story. As if, like, it's, for me, it was like, oh, you're trying to kick me while I'm down? I'll write a new story. And so I ended up, from the original 6, I ended up with 9 stories. All based in this particular fictional town, all interconnected. And at that point, I realized, look, this is a complete book. So, yeah, that's about me. That's how the book came to be. It was a secret for some time. For some time, it was kind of a secret. It was something only discussed between me and my husband, because at that time I didn't have my daughter. It was just me and him talking about it. He was supportive, from the very beginning, because remember, this started as 1 year off. This started as 1 year off. It didn't start off as, oh, I'm going to stop working. So yeah, he was okay with it. I think he was more okay with it than I was. I was quite scared. And when I decided to actually start the program, I think they were supportive because, I was actually doing something. I was in an academic program. I think a little bit of this static happened when I finished the program, and it was now I've gone and gotten some other qualification, and I'm at home, and nobody knows what I'm doing because nobody really fully understands what's involved in writing, and you're just home. What did you do all this education for? What did you get all this education for? Is this making any sense? And I understood because no doubt my parents sacrificed quite a lot for me to be able to become a lawyer. But sometimes at some point you have to set aside what other people want from you, or what brings other people joy, and try to stretch for what brings you joy. So I believed that in time they would understand, and they did. And it's always easier for people to understand if you're being successful at something. I'm not sure how it would have gone if things had not panned out in the way that they have, but they have come around. Maybe 7 of the stories have been published individually in various journals, literary journals in North America. And when the stories started to get published, I think that was when the turning of the tide, they began to say, "Oh, okay, well, maybe she's onto something." And then the first story that was ever published, a story called 6 Months, when that won an award, an international award, and was like all over the place, and there was a whole big deal about it, that sealed the deal. It was like, okay, well, maybe this is worth it. It's kind of like having a new baby, because I've worked so hard on this, and I've wanted it for so long, and I believed in this book for so long. This book has been, maybe 20-something rejections, and of this book, and by different people, and every time it would be rejected, I would, of course, and sometimes it would come so close. Sometimes there were times when my agent would tell me we had a near miss, like one person liked it, but the other person on the board didn't like it, and so you come so close, and then to hear no, it was always difficult. So for now for it to finally be ready to go out into the world and ready to be appreciated by a whole new audience in a whole new way, it is like having a child, and having the child just kind of grow up overnight and leave your house. Because once it goes out into the world, that's it. I have no more control. Actually, last week, the publisher sent me what you call the galleys. So the galleys is like the mock-up of the book. And I was going through it and looking for little errors, typos, that kind of thing. And I suddenly had like a little panic attack, because I was like, if I don't catch something here, that's it. This is going to print. It's going out into the world, and I'll never be able to change it again. I would have lost control. It's no longer my baby. It will belong to the world. Several years ago, I would have told you the most difficult part is dealing with the rejection and criticism. But now I feel like that isn't the most difficult part. You cannot have thin skin and be a writer. You have to be okay with criticism, and you have to be okay with rejection. You get more rejection than you get acceptances, you know. And criticism, I feel like my writing got better when I found people who I trusted to criticize me, and criticize me harshly. But because I really trusted them and I respected their opinion, me being willing to let my guard down and be like, you know what, maybe I'm not right, really helped my writing improve in ways that I think it wouldn't have if I was still kind of uptight about being criticized. So yes, I think for the first couple of years that was the hardest thing, dealing with rejection and criticism. And now I feel that maybe the hardest thing maybe is just a function of this year that we're living through. The hardest thing is finding the time and space mentally to write in a year like this, when so much is happening, so much is coming at you. Everything is changing. You can't plan. I mean, I've never seen a situation where you cannot plan. You just don't know from one day to the next, you know. It's challenging where we sit here in the Caribbean, far away from the publishing centers of the world, right? We have our own little niche, we have our own little markets, we have our own stuff going on here. But to infiltrate those, it's hard for a writer sitting here trying to infiltrate those publishing centers without connections in those centers. Yeah? And, you know, I mean, if you look at it, a lot of the literature that you will see published from those centers, Caribbean type literature, it is by Caribbean-born people or people of Caribbean descent who no longer live here. They live there. They are seated there. They've grown up there. They have connections there. And so although they may be writing about the Caribbean, although they may be writing in Caribbean voices, they have a little bit of a leg up on us. Yeah? So I would say locally, yes, we have to help each other. Those of us who manage to climb up and out have to be willing to give advice and stuff like that, because I would not have gotten anywhere without the advice of those two people. The book is called Pleasant View, and the name is supposed to be ironic because Pleasant View is the name of this town, this fictional town in Trinidad. And in my mind, because you need to have a model in your mind. So in my mind, while I was writing it, I was kind of picturing Quebec, like in the 90s, right? So Pleasant View is this particular town. And it's not a very well-to-do place. It's actually, parts of it could be a little bit better, but there are parts of it that are quite slummy. And up the mountain from Pleasant View, you have the rich area, of course, where you have the rich people. So it's an entire district with different types of people in it. And everybody in Pleasant View is a smart man. Let's put it that way. Everybody's a smart man. Everybody is trying to pull one over on somebody else. Everybody's trying to profit at somebody else's expense, which plays into, what they call us Trinidadians, right? So it's just kind of showing how people live together in a town and how you begin to wonder, is it that the place is affecting these people and making them behave like that? Or do they affect the place? And, it's like, which one came first, the chicken or the egg? So it's 9 stories, and they are interconnected. And if you read the book in the order in which the stories are presented, by the time you get to the end, yes, each story stands alone, but by the time you read the entire thing, there's a sort of arc, and you feel like you've read a novel. So you get to find out what happened to this one and what happened to that one. Because I'll be honest, when I first went into the MFA program, I hadn't read a lot of short story collections. And when I started reading short story collections, I used to be frustrated because it's like, I read this short story, I invest my emotions in it, I get to know this character, and then the story's over, bam. And then you want me to do this all over again with a new character, right? And then that was like too much emotionally for me. So, so I tried to avoid that in this. And they say, write the book you want to see on the shelves. So this is a short story collection where it's linked, and you come away feeling, I hope, you come away feeling satisfied that you know how things have gone for these characters. Be yourself. My concern or fear as I went through the MFA program and came to the end was, really, who wants to read what I'm writing? It's like, I'm in this American, I could sit here with 2020 hindsight and tell you certain things, but at that time, I didn't know how anything would play out. And I'm like, do these American journals really want to read what I'm writing? What I really want to do is to write about Trinidad. I want to write in a Trinidadian voice. I want to write using Trinidadian words. I don't want to have to put them in italics. I don't want to have to explain things. I want to just put Trinidad on the page. Who wants to read that over here? That was my opinion. And I found that people don't want to read it. People want to read something different. Especially if there's something different. And I think that is, more than anything else, the challenge in my writing, to take something that can be so different and make it seem familiar. Because that is what literature is supposed to do. It's supposed to take fiction, take scenarios that you've never actually experienced yourself and cause you to identify with them, right? Cause you to feel certain emotions, and I feel that is what I have learned, that you really do have to be yourself, whatever that means for you. For me, it meant finding a place and a balance where I was comfortable to be Trinidadian and go from speaking the Queen's English in some stories to local patois in other stories, and to be able to just, because you can't write well if you're not being yourself. The reader will sense it.